Welcome to the U.S. Crime Files. If you find this story engaging that I am going to tell you, please like and subscribe. This one's long, but it's packed with twists, and it's one of the coldest crimes we've covered in a while. Let's get into it. On the afternoon of May 21, 2010, Dennis Cola, 68, was finishing his shift at a pharmacy in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, and heading home. Dennis lived about an hour away in Berry Mills, a quiet, affluent area. Although he worked part-time, Dennis didn't really need to. He and his wife Mina were well off, having worked hard and built successful careers over decades. Dennis had, among other things, served in the Navy, earned a degree in pharmacy, and owned several businesses. Mina, 65, was equally accomplished. She'd worked alongside Dennis in business and held a master's degree in physical education. They'd been married 42 years, raising 2 children, Eric and Cindy, and shared a strong partnership in everything from work to hobbies like gardening. At the time, both were still working, Mina as a substitute teacher, Dennis at the pharmacy, but they were planning to retire soon to spend more time with family and enjoy life. That Friday afternoon, Dennis set out on what would be his final commute home. 3 days later, early on May 24th, their son Eric made a frantic 911 call. He'd found his parents unresponsive in their home. Police arrived to a grim scene. Both Dennis and Mina had been shot. Mina at her desk, Dennis near the kitchen, shot shortly after arriving home. It looked like an ambush, with no signs of forced entry or struggle. A staged burglary seemed likely, as bedrooms had been ransacked, but nothing was missing. The murder weapon was suspected to be a .22 caliber rifle found in the home, but forensic tests couldn't definitively link it to the crime. Investigators worked to piece together the timeline and motives. Mina's computer data showed she was killed around 5:41 p.m. on May 21st, matching the time Dennis would have arrived home. The lack of forced entry pointed to someone the couple trusted. Police quickly turned to family. Eric, their 40-year-old son, was distraught but cooperative. He said he'd last seen his parents the day before and had been busy that Friday with a friend, Mike Gent, and later running errands for his wedding anniversary with his wife Christine. He had alibis for the time of the murders, including receipts and witness statements. Next was Cindy, their daughter, who was financially dependent on her parents and stood to inherit a large sum. She denied involvement and had an alibi supported by work records and surveillance. Her husband Patrick, a former Marine with a temper and a troubled past, was also questioned. He too denied involvement and had an alibi backed by digital evidence. Other leads, including a business dispute with Dennis's nephew Nick Herring, also proved dead ends with solid alibis. Then a breakthrough tip came from a neighbor, Steve Burgess, who believed the murders were a case of mistaken identity. Steve, a local bank president, had been receiving death threats, and his address was often confused with the Colas on mapping software. However, while this theory was investigated, another unsettling event occurred. Eric received a threatening letter reading, "Fixed you," which he claimed was proof the murderer was still targeting his family. The letter was never traced to an origin. Despite these twists, investigators uncovered something damning. A $50,000 check had been cashed from Dennis's investment account the day after the murders, payable to Eric, but forged. Eric's financial situation was dire. He had been living beyond his means, losing money day trading, and had racked up significant debts despite portraying himself as successful. Dennis and Mina had been planning to cut off financial support to both children. Eric had received vast sums over the years, but his financial troubles persisted. With this new evidence, police revisited Eric's alibi. Surveillance footage from the first store he claimed to have visited after leaving Mike's house showed no sign of him or his vehicle. The store also had plenty of the plants Eric claimed to be searching for, contradicting his story. The timeline suggested Eric left Mike's early, went to his parents' home, committed the murders, staged the scene, and then quickly established an alibi by visiting the second store and celebrating his anniversary. Faced with evidence, Eric admitted to forging the check and writing the threatening letter himself, but denied the murders. He was arrested and charged with intentional homicide and forgery. At trial, his defense argued the evidence was circumstantial and pointed to other suspects. However, the prosecution highlighted Eric's motive, lies, and deception. The jury convicted him on all counts, sentencing him to life plus additional years. Eric continues to claim innocence, with supporters online maintaining his innocence, but his appeals have been denied. This case is a chilling reminder that sometimes the darkest betrayals come from those closest to us. Dennis and Mina Cola were generous, kind, and hardworking people, tragically taken by someone they trusted most.